Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of plankton. My name's Ebony, I'm a teacher at Biec, and this is Blinky. Hello! Blinky's going to assist me with my lesson today. So what is plankton, you might be wondering? Well, plankton actually comes from the Greek word planktos, which means drifting or wandering. And that's exactly how they live their life. They drift and they wander through the ocean currents and tides. So today we're going to explore the world of plankton, and as a reef guardian school we really value plankton in our ecosystem because it contributes so much to our world. So how do scientists study plankton? Well, let's find out. At the beginning of each lesson we set our students some lesson objectives. This assists students to know what they're learning about today, why we're learning about that, and also how they know that they're going to be successful in the lesson. So let's look at our lesson objectives for the wonderful world of plankton. Let's kick off the lesson with our lesson objectives. So what are we learning today? Today we're learning the important role that plankton plays in our marine ecosystem, and also how to study plankton. You might ask, why are we learning this? Well, plankton is vital to life on Earth, and therefore we need to protect our aquatic ecosystems. Science explains the world around us, and scientific research helps us answer our questions. How will you know if you've been a successful learner today? Well, at the end of the lesson, hopefully you can do these things. Can you explain what plankton is and classify samples of plankton? Can you describe the roles that plankton play in our marine ecosystem? Can you compare and contrast the features of phytoplankton, which is plant, and zooplankton, which is animal? And can you create a marine food chain, including plankton? So firstly, you'll need access to an aquatic ecosystem. In our case, we have the beautiful Boyne River, which is a saltwater ecosystem. So scientists need access to this. Then they need some specialised equipment. So they collect plankton nets and collecting jars. They prepare themselves their vessel with safety gear on tow. And they head down to the river, launch the boat and conduct a plankton tow, which takes about an hour by the time that they go slowly up and down the river to collect the tiny organisms.
That's a pretty nice river.
So here we are, guys, down at the beautiful Bray Park at Boyne Island. We've got our little boat ready to launch into the water and collect some plankton. At this time of the day is a perfect time to go and collect plankton, as that light is starting to dissipate. The plankton like to come to the surface and feed on the last bit of phytoplankton that rises to capture the last bit of the sun. Obviously the last thing we need to do before we jump on the water is make sure we're nice and safe. I've checked over the boat, we've got plenty of fuel, batteries on, bungs are in, we've got life jackets, and we are ready to go and collect. Obviously we've also got our collecting gear, which Ebony will talk a little bit further about shortly. All right, let's get the boat in the water and get out on this beautiful Boyne River and go and collect.
Yahoo! Let's do this!
This here is a picture of one of our pieces of specialised equipment for our plankton tow. It's called our Plankton Net. At the base of the plankton net you can see a plastic bottle. The plastic bottle is just screwed on. That's a collection bottle, and that's where all the plankton will be stored as the plankton tow is occurring. The net itself, its mesh is fine enough that it will collect the plankton, however will still allow water to pass through as you are going along at about 2 knots towing the net behind you. The net also is connected to a big long line. The line is obviously let out gradually as the vessel is moving, and there is a small chain there also just to give the net a bit of weight so that it drops just below the surface of that water column. Here I have the net ready with the rope in hand. I'm just going to gradually release this into the water column now and allow that plankton net to float and just gradually drop below the water. I let out as much rope as I need to and then tie it off at the boat. You can see the speed that we're travelling at is quite slow at the moment for this to occur. You can see I have two nets or two ropes that are moving behind the vessel. One is our zooplankton net and the other is our phytoplankton. We've been towing the nets for about 30 minutes now, so it's time to pull them in, as that was the recommended time to collect a good sample. The net that we're pulling in at the moment is actually our phytoplankton net. So the mesh on this net is a lot finer than our zooplankton net. It allows us to capture those smaller microorganisms. As we pull it in, we're just going to give the net a little rinse itself so that all the microorganisms that are stuck on the inside of the net actually wash down into that little black collecting tube. What do you think, Blinky?
Yes, I'm very excited. Looking through this one eye of mine, I can see lots of my family and friends. Well done. Fido zoo. Fido zoo. Fido zoo. Can't we just tip them all in together?
Yes, Blinky, just be patient. That's what we plan on doing. This is our zooplankton sample, so we're just going to pop that into the fish tank. The fish tank also has a little bubbler inside that just enables us to circulate some oxygen or some air through that water sample to keep our plankton alive for longer. It means you can use that same plankton sample for multiple class groups, or it can sit for a longer period of time before you actually require a sample. We often sample in the afternoon and then do plankton as a night session when we have camps in. This is our phytoplankton sample, so I'm going to tip it in with our zooplankton sample. And being a big dish like a fish tank, it just means that students are able to access the plankton and have a good view of what they can see through the fish tank before they put it into their little petri dish sample. In order to view our plankton samples under a microscope, we need to make sure that we set it all up properly. We have a little pipette and some petri dishes. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to our tank and squeegee a little bit of our plankton sample onto our pipette. We only do a little bit at a time. We create kind of like a little bubble on our petri dish. This means that the little sample can't swim away as we're trying to look at it under the microscope. It's contained to its little water bubble. Over to our fish tank with our pipette. I've actually just found a little comb jelly that I'm going to try and get for you. Usually I'd leave my petri dish on the desk, but I've just lifted it up so I can show you the comb jelly. Once you've got your sample sorted into a nice little bubble, head over to the microscope and pop it on the stage plate. We have this fantastic micro eye that actually connects up to the TV. So rather than looking through the eyepiece, we actually get to look at the TV to view our sample. It's great for in the classroom because all students can see what we're looking at the same time. The only thing this requires it now is for us to zoom and focus on the sample so you get the best picture possible. Here you can see we have a few microorganisms that are stuck within the little water bubble. Let's look at our zooplankton, which is our animal plankton. They usually migrate deeper into the water column during the daytime to be less visible to heavy predators such as fish, and usually come up at nighttime when it's darker to feed on the phytoplankton. All plankton have specific adaptations to enable them to survive, including flatter bodies, transparent, and oil droplets that assist them with floating to conserve energy. In order to move around, they have little cilia or flagella, which you can see in these ones, that they sort of flick around in the water column to help them get some kind of movement.
Hey, that's me. I'm Zooplankton.
Yes, Blinky, you're spot on. You are zooplankton. And you're a type of copepod, which is a type of zooplankton. There's lots of other different types of zooplankton as well that we're going to look at a little bit further on. Because you live your entire life as plankton, we actually call you a holoplankton. In comparison to this, some other zooplanktons change throughout their life and become an adult form, and we call them meroplankton. One of the things that you like to eat, Blinky, is phytoplankton. So let's explore a little bit more about phytoplankton now. Phytoplankton, which is our plant plankton, are microscopic organisms, much smaller than our zooplankton, and they also spend their entire life drifting around the ocean. Under the microscope, phytoplankton look nothing like normal plants that grow on land. No leaves, no roots, no stems. However, they do share the same characteristic of being able to capture sunlight and convert it into food. This is a superpower of plants, and this process is called photosynthesis. But they do more than just produce food. They also produce the oxygen that we need to breathe. Hey, Blinky, take a deep breath.
Yeah, what do you want me to do with it?
What percentage of the oxygen that we breathe do you think phytoplankton provided us with?
I don't know.
Would you believe it's 50%? That's right. Every second breath you take has been gifted to you by our friend the phytoplankton. There's two types of phytoplankton. These are dinoflagellates and diatoms. In the picture that you can see, that's an example of a dinoflagellate. They have two flagella, which look like the little antennae that you can see at the top, to help them move through the water. And they have a hard shell for protection. This is an example of a diatom, which is also another type of phytoplankton. They come in various shapes and sizes and also contain different number of chloroplasts, which enable them to photosynthesize. Diatoms have specific adaptations that also help them survive in this environment, such as forming chains by linking together to help them keep afloat near the surface to enable them to photosynthesize. As you can see, the diatoms that I've showed you so far are very transparent, so they nearly appear invisible to predators. They also have this protective cell wall made of glass, which you can see in this picture.
All I see is food.
So Blinky, can you help us out here? Where does this all begin?
Well, I like to think it all begins with me, but it kind of starts a bit earlier. It all begins with the sun. The phytoplankton, which is what I eat, yummy, 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 yum. They then obtain their energy from the sun through a process called photosynthesis. Phytoplankton are then eaten by us, the zooplankton, which are then eaten by small fish, which then get eaten by bigger fish, and finally, large fish such as sharks. We call that a food chain. Without plankton, and specifically our phytoplankton, none of the larger fish or animals in the ocean could survive. The entire marine food web would collapse. Now, how's that for an important role?
So not only do you provide 50% of our oxygen on Earth, but you also absorb a huge amounts of carbon dioxide from our atmosphere.
Yes, and we're also the largest supplier of fossil fuels, sinking to the ocean floor when we die and accumulating over many years, producing oil and gas.
Well, Blinky, I'm pretty impressed by all of that. You certainly are some important little critters out there in our ocean. Hopefully all the kids have learnt something today from our lesson.
Yes, I sure do hope so. Hey, Ebony, let's hand over to the kids, hey? We've done all the hard work, now it's their turn.
I agree, Blinky. So, students, we have put together a list of activities that follow on from our wonderful World of Plankton lesson today. You'll notice that they've been grouped into your year levels. So there's activities for Prep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. Please select your year level and read through the activities that we have suggested that you complete after following through with our plankton lesson. Once you've completed your activities, we'd love to see what you have created. So please feel free to share these onto the Boyne Island Environmental Education Centre Facebook page. And if you have any questions or queries, or if you're a little bit interested in plankton and want to know more, please send through questions as well. That's what our teachers are here for today. So Blinky, we're coming to the back end of our wonderful World of Plankton lesson now. We just want to go back through our lesson objectives and get our students to reflect upon whether they think they have been a successful learner today. So students, Can you explain what plankton is and classify the samples of plankton that were given to you? You may need to pause some of our slideshows and have a look at our ID charts, which are given to you as a separate resource. Can you describe the roles that plankton play in the marine ecosystem? Can you compare and contrast the features of phytoplankton with zooplankton? And are you able to create your own food chain, including plankton? I've also included a list of our Australian curriculum links, which cover the learning area of science and also our sustainability cross-curricular priority. So on behalf of Blinky and myself, we'd like to say thanks for joining our lesson today. Hopefully you've learnt lots about plankton and start to think about ways that you might be able to contribute to a healthier ecosystem for our reef. Goodbye.